Hi, everyone. Today I am joined by Sailor. She's the designer here at iThemes, and then also Timothy, who is a developer on the iThemes security plugin. And today we just want to talk a little bit about how they came up with the security dashboard feature and anything else they'd like to share us. And Sailor, my first question is going to be for you. How did you get into design?
Well, my parents are really creative people, so it really wasn't just I saw something one day and then I was interested. I think it was just part of me, as cliche as that sounds. But I just really like design, and actually, I came from like a farming community, so it wasn't very celebrated. And then went to college and started out in graphic design, and through just some unfortunate events, um, had ended up picking a different degree that I didn't actually go with, but I started to get introduced to HTML, CSS, and I discovered that I really liked web design a lot. So started teaching myself how to do that after I graduated college, and then I've just kind of stuck with that, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad that you did. Ever since you've kind of taken over from the previous designer, really enjoyed everything that you've done on the site and the changes that you've made.
Thanks.
No, thank you.
Okay.
And then, Timothy, how about you? How'd you get into development?
I got into development through WordPress. So WordPress is what initially taught me how to code. My path is probably similar to a lot of people who got into developing by working with WordPress, just building sites for people that I knew, and then eventually people that I didn't know, and then started building plugins and eventually found my way over to working at iThemes.
Yeah, you built some add-ons to a plugin that we had on the .org repo, and our bosses noticed the quality of work that he did, and then got him on the Exchange team full time, and then eventually he moved over to the security team. So, um, kind of entrepreneur to lead developer of iThemes Security. uh, and then, Sailor, will you kind of walk us through your steps to design from like idea to actually getting it up onto the website or in a plugin?
So, when I started out in graphic design in college, they really taught us like a process to start using, and they told us like you're all going to find your own, and that's translated really well here. And so, first of all, I try really hard not to recreate the wheel because there's no point. I just like to do my research and see who's doing something well, and sometimes like there's no one out there doing anything, or if they are, they don't have a good solution yet, and that's when it becomes really difficult. For this one, or just my design process in general, I guess we'll talk about the dashboard specifically later, but I usually just like go in, do research. I use Pinterest a lot. I have a board specifically for like web design and then UI, and then I use Behance, and I get on Dribble, and I'll look at what people have been learning on CodePen and what they've been trying. But a lot of it is just research and seeing who's doing what well. And even if I can just use one piece of what they're doing, and maybe I have my own ideas of like how I could make it better. And then I also just like to brainstorm with people in the office, whoever has time, to just talk about if they've had any thoughts over any different solutions, and then really just get in like trying to implement different ways. And a lot of times it's wireframing different ideas and then showing them to other people and getting feedback, and uh, eventually ending up on a solution that we can all agree on that's best.
No, I do. I see. I get to watch you kind of go through your process, like especially with the security dashboard, like going in and seeing your different wireframes of it, and then seeing from start to finish how it started as kind of an idea of us talking, and then you developing it and refining it, and then collaborating. Which I'll have some questions about your guys' collaboration a little bit later. Timothy, what will you go and walk us kind of through your process? How you like come up with the steps that need to take place in order for something to come to life in the security plugin?
It's not on the question sheet.
I know, and I know it's not, but like
you're kind of spitball. So for something like this, it varies. So like we have almost all of the features that we're building with iThemes security have some level of input from Sailor on a design level. And so depending on the feature, that can be a lot or it can be a little. Like for instance, one of the things that we launched a couple of months back was a more in-depth version management feature. So for something like that, that might be something that I build up very simple, crude wireframes for. And then Sailor took that and took it all the way to the next level to build a rich UI that'll be really easy for our customers to use. And so she goes ahead and designs that, builds more high fidelity mockups, and then I get to work to start implementing those things. In terms of a product level, that's something that all of us at iThemes, we kind of have, as you know, we talk about the product, we have meetings about it, we talk with the different people involved, from different developers to our leads like Corey and Matt, seeing what issues are popping up from you guys in the support channels, all of those different things. And we get to decide what would a minimal viable product for this feature look like, and how can we have a roadmap for this feature, and what will this feature look like in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months.
No, it's really, I was having a conversation with Matt yesterday. He's talking about how great it is to work at iThemes and work with like smart, talented people like you two, because you guys are both extremely organized, but in such a different way. Like I see the list that you make, Timothy, of each step, and then just completely thinking through the user experience of it in a very like regimented, detail formatted, where Sailor, like you have all your little notes, but they're scribbled everywhere, and then there's some in this pocket and there's some in this pocket, but the end result is the same. My opinion, greatness, but just done completely differently, and it's fun to watch. It's I enjoy seeing you guys work. And then Timothy, next question for you. What was the goal of the security dashboard?
So iThemes security has a lot to it. And a lot of this data is stuck into the iThemes security logs page. And there's a lot of it. There's hundreds of entries. If you have a busy site, there might be thousands of entries in a day. And it's not really possible for someone to easily keep up to date on it and get a nice snapshot of what their site security is looking like at the moment. So one of the things that we wanted to do with the security dashboard was to take all of this data that is sort of hidden away in the logs or hidden away on other pages, or that you could sort of aggregate by looking from one page to another page to another page, and put them all into a centralized location where you can easily get a quick, like 30-second overview of what's happening on your site right now. And so the way we do that is with different cards. So we have cards for things like 404s, cards for things like lockouts, and what hosts are actually locked out right now, as well as graphs to kind of show you a change over time. Like for instance, you might see that, wow, there's been a huge spike of hits or of lockout attempts in the last 24 hours. So we wanted to build the dashboard to give you an easy way to get all of that information quickly at a glance without having to be super technical and really understand what does every single log item mean.
And I love that, because that's one of the things that we got most from like a feature request standpoint is, how do I understand the stuff in the log? What do I do with all this information? And then be able to break it out and break it down. That way it's not so intimidating, and every single user can get something out of it, which I think is awesome. And then knowing his goal of the iThemes security dashboard, how did you come up with your design, Sailor?
Well, a lot of times I feel like I'm in the same boat as the user as far as like understanding, because for sure back end stuff is still just it's unclear to me, and so it's difficult for me to understand, and I'm not as in depth in security as Timothy is every day either, so like his understanding is far greater than mine. So coming at it from that, I feel like I can relate to the user a little more. So I'm seeing all these logs and I'm seeing all this information, and even going into design it, I feel super overwhelmed of just how is this going to be organized well. And so knowing that his goal also was, how can you understand this better? It allowed me to just like think in terms of like, okay, well, what would I want to see if I'm the user and I'm looking at this, and what's going to like help me day to day, and what are the important key things that I need to know all the time. And so trying to pull out that information. And I will also say, whenever we took this project on and started this dashboard, I was watching Star Trek. I was watching through all the movies, and the just when they're in, I guess I don't know much about Star Trek either, like the terminology, but the command center is what I'm going to call it. But just when they're in there, I took a lot of inspiration from that kind of idea as, okay, here's my security dashboard. I think it'd be fun to see it as like a command center, and this is how I'm going to run my website. And so I just, it was kind of fun to run with that, and it worked out, I think, pretty well. And I hope that all the information is organized in a way that our users can understand it better.
I love that. Design by empathy.
Yeah.
Just getting the information. No, that's awesome. I really do. I think that's awesome. One thing I'm interested in that I don't get to be a part of is how you guys collaborate together to come up with the finished product. Because I know there is a lot of, first of all, I know throughout this was a lot of different changes because this feature was coming to life right near the release of WordPress 5.0, which brings in some new capabilities. And so I know there was a lot of back and forth of what is possible with which version of WordPress and actually how to do it. So, so really long-ended question is, how do you guys work together to make sure you're on the same page and make sure what you guys are doing is actually, you're actually able to do it?
Well, I think is we use Slack, and Slack drives a lot of stuff. We're a distributed team. So Sailor is based in Oklahoma. I'm over here in New York. So almost all of that kind of feedback stuff has to happen over Slack or Zoom meetings, things like that. From a process point of view, Sailor usually works on her mockups and then high fidelity, like wireframes or so on and so forth. And then we usually just have conversations back and forth discussing about what things can we do differently, what works better based on this type of thing that we know from our users, different suggestions. And then Sailor keeps working on it and iterating, and we keep iterating to get something that looks really good.
Yeah. I would I'll say Timothy might not feel this way, but I feel like 80% of the time, or most of the time, I feel like we're on the same page unless I haven't understood something as far as what the actual purpose of a feature is. That's, I feel like, whenever I get hung up. But most of the time, I feel like Timothy will message me something like, what about this? And it will have been something I was already thinking, like, we should change it to this. And then he's already done it, and it works really well. And then also we use Trello for any like upcoming things that we're excited about or think might be possibly implemented later.
Yeah, and to go off that, like one of the things that we do at the start of these things, like we had a big meeting, and we discussed all of these things. But of course, like me and Michael and Gerald or whoever is super involved with the security team, sometimes stuff to us becomes shorthand lingo. And one of the things that's really great is to have someone who isn't day-to-day working on the security team as well, so that when there is something there that we've missed explaining, it's something that will eventually get caught in the actual design process itself. So if we didn't have that, I think we would wind up with products that still have some spots, and I'm sure there are still some spots, but things that aren't as clear to users as we'd like them to be or we imagine them to be ourselves.
Yeah, that aspect of it is definitely helpful. And Sailor, I can agree that there are plenty of times that I think we're on the same page. Timothy and I are on the same page, and then kind of I don't have a complete understanding of something. And usually the error in communication and understanding is on my end, so I can relate. And then, no, I think that's really cool. Software is really hard, and the fact that like anything ever gets released is amazing to me. And then when it comes out as good as the security dashboard does, it's, I think it's great. So the fact that you guys make it look so easy from just, my perspective, the non-technical perspective, is it's cool. I remember the first, this is the first job I've had in a software company. I remember the first release I was ever a part of with iThemes security. I remember just getting goosebumps, just knowing how I would, like, as silly as it sounds, I literally did have goosebumps because I'm like, this is happening. This is awesome. So yeah, thanks for giving people goosebumps, I guess. So what do you guys see coming up in the future of the security dashboard? Because this is just iteration 1. I know that there's going to be future iterations. I know some of that is dependent on changes and WordPress itself. So yeah, what do you guys, what are your ideas? I'm not going to hold you to anything here. None of this is set in stone, but this is just kind of your wish list.
I think one of the first things that we would really love is to get feedback from you guys about what you guys want to see in the security dashboard. And to see what your clients are requesting, what you're requesting, what would make sense for you. We have some ideas of things that we want. For example, we want to go more in depth into user logging and take all of this user logging data that can also be a bit of just a chore to sort through and provide a way to hopefully see a high-level overview of user activity that's happening in your site. We want different cards to be able to go more in depth. For instance, we have the 404 card, but we want to be able to say, oh, these are the most popular 404s that are getting hit, or these are 404s that you might want to be more concerned about that might be an attacker trying to probe for something, different things like that. We want to make our cards have more in-depth abilities to them for information that is more difficult to understand. We want to have a way to see it at a glance and then to be able to drill down into details for the users who want to be able to do that.
I love that. Adding a little bit of intelligence to it, I think, will be extremely beneficial for everyone. What about you, Sally? Do you have anything in mind?
Well, I mean, I think everyone knows that everyone learns differently and understands information differently. So I would like it if, there's certain data that can be shown in a different way if we can actually customize that to the user and give different options. So depending on what list of logs you're looking at, if you want to see that in a chart, if you want to see that in a graph, how is this going to be most useful to you? I think I'm really excited about the possibilities of just making that dashboard even more customizable and just better for the user.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah. And one of the things is this dashboard is kind of like, it's a whole new user interface, a whole new user experience for us with iThemes security. So one of the cool things that we hope to be able to do in the future is kind of use this kind of model as an experimental ground for what future features in iThemes security could look like, and to see how we can take different things that are across the plugin and see how they would look like in a dashboard context. And it gives us a lot of places to experiment and have a way to see iThemes security in a new light while still keeping the settings interface around and the logs interface around for people who want to manage the site that way.
Yeah, I love the security dashboard. I love all the possibilities that it brings to the future, and I'm excited to see future iterations of it. Sailor, what is one thing that you hope people notice, one little design thing that you hope people notice when they're looking at their security dashboard?
Well, I want them to notice it, but I also don't want them to, because it means that there's an error or there's no data. But I really like the little computer, sad computer graphics I made that are just unbroken in here. So it's I hope that if something breaks, that softens the blow a little bit because you like the graphic. But I also hope maybe you don't have to see it.
That sad computer icon is so cute. I was sending it to Gerald back and forth. If something was wrong with anything, just send him the sad computer icon. I hope no one has to see it, but if you do.
And there are different variations of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, which is great.
Collect all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, kind of got a question for both of you guys. What is currently inspiring you right now, and then how are you guys putting that into your work? Taylor, you want to go first?
Well, it's really
Star Trek.
Huh?
Star Trek.
Oh yeah. Not at the moment. I got it on my system. But actually it's I'm like piggybacking off of what our marketing director, Kristen, is inspired by this year. She's inspired by a book, Joyful, and like
Good book.
she's like telling everybody about it. And so I have just looked through I got the book and I'm reading through it and it's really good so far. I've also just like read a few snippets from further ahead that I'm not there yet in the book, but I'm looking at their website and just the theory behind the whole book and bringing joy to people's lives through just, I don't know, maybe things that we would see as mundane, like a website that's just, oh, I see this every day. But how could this maybe unconsciously bring joy to someone's life? And so we're actually trying to maybe move our branding towards joyful branding. And so that's what's been inspiring me lately, is just reading through that book and taking inspiration from what they've done.
No, that's definitely a great source of inspiration. She also recommended that book to me, and I read it, and it's just, it has already influenced me. We have light plants in the house now, which is like a recommendation from the book, and then I'm trying to convince Brittany, my wife, to paint the walls different colors. I'm not winning that battle, and I can't get rid of the book yet, so we'll see how that works out. How about you, Timothy? What is inspiring you right now, and how are you bringing that to your work?
I'm really inspired right now by WordPress. One of the things that people might not know is that a lot of the things that we built in the security dashboard are powered off of features that have been included into WordPress because of Gutenberg. And Gutenberg is like a whole new model of thinking about developing for WordPress, and thinking about designing for WordPress and what user experience looks like. And so over like the past 2 years that Gutenberg has been in development, and for me personally, learning some of these new tools like React and Redux and different JavaScript frameworks and libraries and things like that has given me a whole new way of looking at what building an interface for WordPress looks like, and what building a product for WordPress looks like. And so I think right now is a really, really exciting time for people who are building plugins for WordPress and building themes for WordPress to see how WordPress is evolving. And so that's been really inspirational to see just what the future holds and what's possible with all of these new tools. I find them really, really cool. And while there's a lot to learn, that is really awesome and really makes your life a lot easier. There's so much in the security dashboard that we wouldn't have been able to do as easily or as quickly or as well as if it wasn't for all of these new tools that WordPress has introduced in the latest release.
Just on that note, one thing I'm super impressed about with you, Timothy, is how much you stay on top of things. And I got a specific question about the dashboard of whether or not something was possible. He had already submitted a card to the WordPress core team who are working on this to see if there can be an improvement for it. He's constantly looking at the changes and giving his feedback, which is nice, because the more feedback they can get from a variety of sources, the better it is for everyone. So not only does he make our products better, he makes WordPress better for everyone just by him being so active in the discussion of the development of WordPress core. And
I try and be as active as I can, but there are a lot of contributors to the Gutenberg project and the WordPress project who do a lot more than me and who contribute a lot more. So I want to make sure that they're the ones who deserve a lot of the credit.
Oh, I wasn't trying to give you that much credit. Don't worry.
I don't know how much I'm contributing over here on the side of things.
No, feedback is important. Just like you were saying, what's important for the next iteration of the security dashboard is our user feedback, our customers' feedback. And so having the knowledge to give good, it's not just feedback, it's good feedback, it's quality feedback. And it's something that they can take and then run with, not just, I don't like it. It's this is what I needed to do, and here's the steps I think on how we can do it. So the quality of feedback is great. But yeah, like I'm not going to give you credit for Gutenberg. That's but Gutenberg is
much more talented than me. Have put in hundreds and thousands of hours on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's more than one of them too. So no, but I'm sure your feedback is appreciated by them. Is there anything else you guys want to add to before we get out of here?
there's something that I really wanted to highlight with the dashboard. And that's the aspect of sharing the dashboard with others. One of the things that we've heard from a lot of you guys is that you use iThemes security for your client sites. And so you are managing security for them. But sometimes it can be difficult. Do I give them all access to all of iThemes security? Will they change any settings that I don't want them to? Is there information there that isn't relevant to them that they shouldn't have to worry about? How can we make this more understandable for your clients? And so one of the things we really wanted to do with the iThemes security dashboard is, one thing is that it's super customizable. So you can change cards and you include cards, you can move them around, make them bigger to show more information or show less information, or completely exclude them if you don't think it's relevant to your client. And then you can take that dashboard and share it with your client. And they don't have to be an administrator, they could be any user on that site, and they can see that information. They can get an overview of the security of their site, exactly how you want to present it. So I think the sharing feature of the security dashboard is exceptionally cool. And I think it's something that we want to expand on how you can share that dashboard. Right now you can share it to different users or to any, if you have multiple clients or stakeholders that should see this in a role, you can do it that way. But we also want to expand the actual permissions that you give them onto that dashboard as well. For instance, there's a card that has all the malware scans, and you can run a malware scan right now, or it shows all the backups, and it will let you make a backup right now. And so we want to give you a way for the people you're sharing that dashboard with. Maybe you want them to be able to run scans or want them to create backups, or maybe you don't, or maybe you only want them to be able to view certain backups, things like that. So one of the really cool things about it is just that customizability and how you can take that and use it to show a completely constructed dashboard to your clients.
No, I think that is going to be a very powerful feature. Currently is a powerful feature. And what I do love is the attention to detail that you brought to it, where it's not just a specific user role. You know that there's some people who want to limit their, we'll just call it client containment. And so they might just have like editor user role, because they do need to go on there and make changes to post or add content, but everything else they're paying someone to manage it, so they don't need access to it. But they can still see the dashboard because you didn't limit it to admin capabilities, which that's why I'm glad that you're part of the team, because that's something I honestly would have looked over, something like that. And so the fact that you have that attention to detail, I think is great. That's why I love that you're part of iThemes Security. Selfishly, iThemes Security, not the other. I'm glad when they moved you off Exchange, they moved you onto iThemes Security, so we don't have to share it with anyone else. But how about you, Taylor? Do you have anything to put you on the spot other than your take? You want to tell us about how you're taking your boot camp course so you can contribute more to the WordPress and Gutenberg, or not?
Yeah, I am excited. I am excited about that. I just started a JavaScript for WordPress boot camp, and it runs for 3 months, and I'm really excited to see what else I can contribute once this is all over. And I was especially excited just thinking about security dashboard and where I could be more helpful in that area. So yeah, we'll see in March.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited for you. I think that's going to be huge for us. All right, well, hey, thanks. I know you guys are super, super busy, so I really appreciate you guys taking the time and letting everyone kind of see behind the scenes of how we, our thought process of developing a new feature. And I know there's a lot of people who are in the WordPress community who don't know how to get started in development design. So thank you for taking a little bit of your time and sharing it, and hopefully giving them some kind of direction that maybe they can take themselves. So thanks again, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again soon. And all right, go get back to work, okay, guys?
Wow.
All right, see you guys later.